My name is Ellie, and I need to share my story with you today. I'm one of those people who had their own journey in and out of Islam. I lived my life as a Muslim for a good amount of years, and then I left. I wanted to share my perspective because, while there are many ex-Muslim stories from people born into Islam, there's also a percentage of us who converted and actually left. The Islamic propaganda machine likes to pretend that countless people convert to Islam and their lives become perfect, and I believe that's probably true for some people. They're very happy with their decision. But I wanted to share how the decision I made was completely wrong for me, how it negatively impacted my life, how I didn't find peace in it, and why I ultimately left. If this resonates with you, please subscribe to my channel and share this video. Your support helps others find their way to truth and freedom. I grew up Catholic in a very tight-knit Catholic community in London. I didn't really have friends of other faiths or family members who practiced anything else. Everything was just Catholicism. I went to Catholic schools, and then when I was about 16, I left the Catholic school system and went to a normal sixth form. That was the first time I was ever introduced to Islam because before then, I only knew about it from the news. Growing up in the wake of 9/11 really colored my view of Islam. I just thought it was something quite scary. I didn't mix with Muslim people, so I had no idea what it was actually about. My family had no issues with Islam, but the only time we'd hear about it was when there was a terrorist attack, which sounds terrible, but that's just how it was. I took religious studies for my A-levels. What I thought would be general religious studies turned out to be basically just Islamic studies. I don't know why they didn't label it as such, but I ended up in this class with only about 5 non-Muslims out of 30 students. I had never experienced the Muslim community before, and it struck me as absolutely supportive, so together, with this strong identity that captivated me. Here's what's important to understand. I grew up in a household where I had a lot of issues. I had problems with my own identity and didn't really have a happy childhood. My teenage years were really bad, for multiple reasons I can't fully go into here. I didn't feel like I belonged with my own family, and as anyone who understands trauma and abuse would know, that creates issues around identity and having a stable sense of self. I had no true sense of self. When I discovered all the Muslims in my class, we would have discussions on things like euthanasia, and they would all have the same opinion. Nobody had different opinions. I found this really attractive at that age because I didn't have much knowledge about the world yet. The fact that they all thought the same way and had this wonderful sense of togetherness, like when we talked about euthanasia, they would all just say it's wrong because Allah says it's wrong, impressed me deeply in my young, impressionable mind. I was used to my Catholic school where we had atheists in our class, and not everyone thought the same way. This was building a really strong profile in my mind that Islam was like some kind of gigantic family, and it was so attractive to me. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Ecclesiastes 4 verses 9 to 10. I was desperately seeking that companionship, that community, but I was looking in the wrong place. I'd always been taught by society that the hijab was something women were forced to wear, those typical stereotypical tropes. But then I saw the girls in my class being fashionable with their hijabs, and they were actually choosing to wear them and encouraging each other. Once again, it was that strong marker of identity that attracted me. My teacher was a very lovely woman, one of the nicest people I ever met. She was Muslim and very spiritual, definitely not political at all. I had not been shown much kindness by people in my life, and she was one of the first adults who showed me genuine kindness. It made such an impression on me. With Islam, everything good comes from Allah according to Muslims, so when you meet such a wonderful person, they attribute that to Islam. When you see the togetherness, the community, they attribute it to Islam. I was too young to really understand the multifaceted reasons that make someone a good person. It's not just one thing. But at that point, I wasn't old enough to really understand that, so I just went with it. Being Catholic, I had this problem. These people don't think Jesus is the Son of God. They think Prophet Muhammad is the best man of all time, whereas I had grown up believing that Jesus was God incarnate, God walking on earth. That admiration and love I had for Jesus came from a genuine place in my heart. Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." John 14 verse 6. This verse was embedded in my soul from childhood, and it held me back from fully embracing Islam. In school, they would make us, well, we would willingly cry every Easter over the crucifixion. We would do passion plays, and the love and admiration Catholics have for Jesus, for Mother Mary, for the saints, it's powerful. This held me back. I was like, no, I can't abandon Jesus. But Islam was looking really good. Then they taught me things like the Quran has been perfectly preserved, and I was learning about this in my studies, learning so much about Islam. Those classic arguments that apologists put forward. The Quran is perfectly preserved in comparison with the Bible, which in their opinion is just mumbo-jumbo where nobody knows what's real and what's not. Before you've really done a deep dive inquiry into it, these things seem quite logical. So not only was this powerful emotional thing happening in me, but now the logical side, or so-called logical, was starting to play on my mind as well. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is the verbatim word of Allah, of God. Maybe this is true. Maybe this is God's actual speech via Angel Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad, and it's never been changed. Now I understand how that's not actually an argument for something being divine, but back then it started making sense to me. There were just things like when you're a woman, and they tell you that Prophet Muhammad said heaven is under your mother's feet, that women are so venerated. There's a whole chapter in the Quran called Mary, and as a Catholic that's how they know to hook you in. Mentioning Mother Mary is going to hook you in. Please hit that subscribe button if you're finding this helpful. I want to reach more people with this truth. I went away with my class to Istanbul, Turkey for a couple of days. We visited all the wonderful buildings there. It was actually a fantastic trip. Amazing. Once again, what we were being told was this is wonderful because, you guessed it, Islam. I came back from that trip. Istanbul is a really lovely city. I was actually shocked because it was quite modern. The European side where we were staying was pretty modern, but had that wonderful atmosphere. I came back, and I was just like, you know what, this is wonderful. I love it. But I wasn't ready really because I knew I was going to university, so I kind of wanted to enjoy university. I looked into other things and came to the conclusion that I was an atheist because I couldn't decide between Islam and Christianity. The more I looked into it, I kind of saw that the more I researched religion, I started seeing holes in the logic of believing in a God. So I just left religion altogether and spent my university years having a great time. I moved abroad, came back, worked while I was abroad. I had a wonderful time. I came back to the UK because I had to for my university, and I had a complete breakdown. I was in a really bad place, very lonely at that point. I couldn't go back to my family home for many reasons, and I was just desperate for a sense of family, a sense of belonging. I started going on dating apps to try and find someone, a very common thing to do when you have unresolved trauma. I ended up meeting someone, and this person happened to be a Muslim from a Muslim background. They told me that Islam was the answer to all of my problems. Everybody kept telling me it's because of the West why I had all these issues. I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I had worked so hard to study and live the life I wanted to live, and I didn't realize at the time it was because of my mental health that I had the issues I had, my childhood trauma, and things out of my control. I was kind of unlucky in that way, I guess, and it all just got too much. I really just needed time to work through what I was going through, but I didn't know that at the time. Lots of people were saying to me, the reason you feel this way is because of the West. The West is a broken place, and Islam is perfect, and we don't have these issues in Islam. All I could think of were those days when I felt appreciated, wanted, the kindest people I'd ever met, the wonderful holiday in Turkey. I just thought, you know what, maybe they're right. I was desperate, so I said, okay, maybe this is from God because I feel so at home with these people, with the beliefs, everything. I decided to give it a go, and at first you get this kind of rush of acceptance. I felt like I'd never been so admired before. Everybody was congratulating me when I converted. They would be saying, wow, you've made the right decision. I really just felt appreciated for the first time. Now I finally had a family. Now I finally had people to call my own. Very quickly, that all fell apart. The same community that welcomed me with open arms then decided to start judging me like crazy. I think when you convert to Islam, you convert for all the reasons I described. You feel like this religion is perfect, perfectly preserved. All these things you're taught. But then when you start actually living the life, you realize, Oh, this is not what I was sold. This is so much different to what I thought it would be. My life actually got even worse at this point, so I ended up blaming myself. I was like, but if the religion is perfect, then it must be me. I was just doing things on a surface level. I wasn't actually looking into the religion. I was just saying it's me. It must be me. This religion is perfect. It's me. Very soon, people started saying stuff to me like, you should be wearing the hijab, you should dress modestly, you shouldn't be talking to those men. I started to get really judged, and I felt like I just couldn't do the things I used to enjoy. But then I'd say, well, I need to get closer to God because that's obviously the shaitan. That's the devil whispering to me. So I did just that. I tried my hardest to get closer and research, but the closer I got and the more research I did, I started to uncover some really horrible things. Maybe I should go back a little bit. There was always one thing that never sat right with me about Islam, and that was their bad attitude towards dogs. Obviously, you can't keep a dog in the house in Islam because there's a hadith that says wherever there's a dog in the house, angels will not come in. This really used to irk me because I'd always grown up having dogs. I love dogs. My dad had a chocolate Labrador, and she really helped me during that depressive stage I was talking about earlier. She was literally the only thing that would get me up and out the door every day, taking her for walks. So it really never sat right with me, but I guess I did cognitive dissonance with all things and just convinced myself somehow that there must be logic behind it. At some point, I got brave enough to sit there and say, hold on, let me actually look into this. Sometimes when your mind is telling you something isn't right, it's usually because something is wrong. I kind of just got brave enough to ask myself, is this actually true that dogs are some sort of bad thing that prevents angels from coming in? I found myself going down this rabbit hole of researching it and seeing that this was a sound hadith, and it was the genuine consensus that dogs cannot live in the house. Something happened in me. I had two conflicting beliefs, and I couldn't hold both of them at the same time in my mind. On one hand, I had this life experience knowing that dogs are life-changing. They actually make people's lives better in so many ways and have helped human evolution. They were the first domesticated animals. That was something I actually knew to be true. I had experience of that. On the other hand, I had the so-called verbatim word of God, and the example of the best man ever telling me that these animals were not to come in the house because they prevent angels from coming in. At this point, I had to give up one belief set. If I gave up that belief about dogs, and there were many things like this is just one example, but if I gave up that belief on dogs, it was almost like I was lying to myself and deluding myself, gaslighting myself. I thought, you know what, I can't. I was like, even if one of these is not true. And I had many problems like this. When I found out about the marriage to Aisha, who was a child, once again there's no way you can justify it. So once again, if you say this example is wrong, the whole thing falls apart. Jesus said, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Matthew 19 verse 14. Children are to be protected, cherished, not used. This verse showed me the stark contrast between Jesus' teaching and what I was discovering about Muhammad. I had no one to talk to about this in real life. I had no one to ask all these questions to, all these doubts I was having. So I went to YouTube, I went to the internet, Google, and I decided to type in, did Prophet Muhammad really marry a 6-year-old child? That's how I discovered the ex-Muslim community, who were so vocal and outspoken about these same doubts I had. But they had the answers, and they had the proof. Then I started discovering even more stuff that the Prophet had done in his lifetime, and that profile of the perfect man really started to fall apart. There were just so many things: slavery, the hatred towards polytheists, and the hatred towards the LGBTQ community, the racism, the supremacy. Some people would say, you can't leave. These are all moral arguments and morality is subjective. But actually, I was like, hold on, morality is important. Trying to be the best person you can is important because it reduces suffering for other people. As someone like myself who's been through a lot of suffering in ways, especially when I was a child, I know that it's so important to have that morality. If God was loving and kind, He would not encourage those things. He wouldn't make those things divine and sanctify them. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. 1 John 4 verse 16. This is the God I was searching for all along, not one who sanctifies hatred and oppression. Very quickly, everything started to unravel. Everything just fell apart for me, and before I knew it, I said to myself, I just don't think I believe in this anymore. I just can't hold on to this. If you're going through something similar, please comment below and let me know. We can support each other. And don't forget to subscribe. I think being a convert, there's a natural privilege that we have. Most of us don't tend to have that huge family behind us trying to keep us in the faith. I kind of just quietly left the room and decided not to tell anyone, like my in-laws and stuff, because I didn't want to cause trouble for myself. I knew how passionate these people were about the faith. So many other reasons for me leaving were down to the way I was treated. People were being racist to me because I'm white. I got sick and tired of hearing people say that Western women are basically immoral and wear basically no clothes, while we're so wonderful because we're modest. It really started to offend me at some point because I was like, but hold on, I grew up in this culture. My family dressed like that. My friends dressed like that. And I don't think they're any worse than me or you. But there was just such a supremacist attitude that really put me off. I always say Islam has very good PR, very good marketing. It's very good at drawing people in and making a case for itself. But when you live the reality, it's a different story. And when you find out more than just the surface, fluffy stuff, it's something, if you're honest with yourself, it's very hard to cling on to. I want to caveat that and say I still believe lots of Muslims who I meet are wonderful people, great people. I know them still and wouldn't say a bad word about them. I really don't think they know their religion as well as the critics of Islam. I really think they're on that surface level, and I think they're taught not to follow their doubts from a very young age, so that stops them from that further inquiry. That's why the internet has literally just changed the game. Now things that people didn't know about, and I genuinely don't think people do, these things are becoming more common knowledge and just so easy to access and research. All the negative things are coming to light. I actually think that's a healthy thing because people should be able to make informed decisions about huge choices like joining a religion or continuing to be religious. We should be allowed to speak about why we disagree with certain religions and historical figures. We should definitely be allowed to discuss that. Just because people hold someone in admiration and high regard, it doesn't mean they're off limits for discussion, especially if the things they did are considered to be the worst of the worst in our society and culture. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8 verse 32. This verse became my lifeline. The truth did set me free, even though it was painful to discover. That's where I'm at now. I do share my story whenever it's safe to. In real life, I would never encourage anyone to speak out if it's not safe because it's actually dangerous. That's the thing. It's dangerous to speak out about these things in so many places in the world. But wherever you're safe and able to do so, I think the discussion should definitely continue and actually should go to an even more public place. We need to be able to criticize any religion, any ideology, and share our experiences, whatever those experiences might be. Over time, I ended up just leaving the whole thing, even leaving the relationship, just everything. I realized that the lie that had been sold to me, that Islam is a quick fix for all my problems, was not true. It was also not true that the West was to blame for my life. It's a multifaceted reason why things go wrong. Through leaving Islam, I was actually forced to do the work on myself and to go inside and try to introspect rather than try to make it about something else. That was my journey. This is a very quick summary of it. That was my journey in and out of the religion and a quick summary of why I don't believe in it and what caused me to stop believing in the belief system. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. I had to learn that real hope doesn't come from escaping into an ideology. It comes from doing the hard work of healing and finding genuine truth. I hope this was informative. This was just a very brief account of why someone like me was drawn to Islam, but what also caused me to leave. If you watched, thank you so much for watching, and I wish everyone the best. Please subscribe to my channel if this resonated with you, share this video with anyone who might benefit from hearing my story, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future content. Your support means everything, and helps others find the courage to seek truth. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or your own story. I read every single one. Thank you for being here, and may you find the truth that truly sets you free. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11 verse 28.